Read and Write for Google Chrome is supporting literacy at Indian Prairie School District 204. Our webinar today is being hosted by TextHelp. We are the software developers of the Read and Write family of literacy support tools. Today we'll be spending our time talking about our Google Chrome extension, Read and Write for Google Chrome. I know from the registration list many of you have had some experience playing around with that. Some of you are experts and some of you are new to Read and Write for Google Chrome, and we're looking forward to sharing a lot about that with you today. My name is Debbie Shaw. I am your host today, and I am the Territory Sales Director for TextHelp, supporting 7 of our Midwest states. There's my contact information, and please feel free to contact me at the end of today if you have any questions that you'd like me to get back to you on. Our agenda for today is an exciting one. I'm very happy to be bringing this webinar to you today as we have a great customer story to tell. Andy Fedeke from Indian Prairie School District 204 in Aurora is with us, and he'll be sharing their decision as a district to go district-wide with Chromebooks, with Read and Write for Google, and what his experience has been with our product. After Andy's part, I'll do a short demo of some of the tools that Andy will be mentioning. I'll let you know how teachers can get these tools for free, and then we'll give you a chance to let us know how we can assist you in moving forward with Read and Write in your district. But first, just a minute or two of housekeeping. This is your go-to webinar control panel. I have one of my colleagues on the phone with us today, Danielle McPartland, and Danielle is going to be monitoring your questions. So I encourage you to type up your questions in that little question box. If you have any for Andy or for myself, we'll actually look to see if there are questions after Andy's presentation. We won't necessarily wait to the end, but we do hope that we'll have some additional time at the very end of our session to address some additional questions. Everybody will be muted, so if there's any background noise or someone walks into your office, that's okay, don't worry about it. We can't hear any of that. The session today will be recorded, so in the next day or two we will be sending a follow-up email to everybody with the link to the recording as well as a link to the slides, so you will be getting that. And so pretty much that's all the housekeeping we have today. So without further ado, it is my great pleasure to welcome Andy Fedeke to our webinar today, and I'm going to give Andy access to the keyboard and mouse. Oh, hopefully, there we go. I think I took it away from him. So welcome, Andy.
Thank you, Debbie. And good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Andy Fedeke, and I am an instructional technology specialist for Indian Prairie School District 204, which means I have the pleasure of working alongside our teachers and administrators and staff and students with the incorporation of instructional technology in their classroom, and in their instruction and curriculum development and all the such. I also serve as the Google Apps domain administrator for the district and wear many other hats as well. And there's my contact information if you would like to get in touch with me. Just a little background on Indian Prairie. So Indian Prairie is the 4th largest district in Illinois. We have over 28,000 students, and those are across 33 buildings, and you can see the breakdown of 21 elementaries, 7 middle schools, and 3 high schools. We have over 2,000 certified staff and even more classified staff. The interesting part to our story is that we have a very small instructional technology department. So there is myself, my colleague Laura, and our director Al, And it's the three of us that serve the district in an instructional technology capacity. We don't have building level coaches. We partner with our awesome LMC directors, and we have building tech liaisons that are kind of our point people at the building and still full-time classroom teachers. And so we partner with those groups to roll out initiatives and programs. But that's really important for you to know, because that really makes a big difference or a big impact in the decisions that we make, in the adoption of resources, in the items that we purchase, because we need to make sure that whatever we purchase is easy to use, easy to follow and understand, can be implemented across our large district easily and without much support. And that's one of our big successes with Read and Write is how quickly and easily teachers have started to use it and have seen the impact on their literacy instruction and on student learning. To talk a little bit about our journey with technology and how this kind of fits into our story. So historically, we've been a Windows district that have, and we've had laptop carts and your traditional computer lab. We have historically been a leader in the BYOT movement and have done a lot of work with that, building the infrastructure to support students bringing their own devices into classrooms and what that looked like and how teachers could teach to incorporate that technology into their teaching and student learning. However, we kind of reached a point where we felt like our students were all over the place with technology, right? And so we had students that were bringing in a laptop and an iPad and a cell phone, and we were struggling to best support our teachers and our students with the accessibility of digital content and resources and materials. And so we really started to have this conversation around a move to one-to-one. And in 2015, we began a plan to move to a one-to-one environment at our buildings. And there you can see kind of our rollout. So this year we've rolled out one-to-one Chromebooks at our middle schools. So about 8,000, 9,000 devices. Next year will be our high schools, which will be another 10,000 devices. And then the third year will be 2nd through 5th grade at our elementary schools. And so we're already seeing how much of an impact that has had at our middle schools. And if any of you are one-to-one, I'm sure you can speak to just the massive amount of impact that has on teacher instruction and student learning. So why Read and Write for Google Chrome? I kind of came across Read and Write many years ago, and saw it, loved it, downloaded the free teacher version and was using it all the time myself. But it wasn't quite the right fit for our students at that time because we were BYOT and because students were kind of all over the place with the tools that they were using. But as we started to move one-to-one and started to, even at the buildings, the elementaries and the high schools that aren't one-to-one, really push the use of Google Chrome, we started to notice that students were using all kinds of different apps and extensions, right? And there I just put a couple on the screen of a couple that they were using. And Speak It, has a big red X on it because that one expired and went away, and then there was a scramble for, well, now which one are we going to replace it with, right? So, but students had all of these extensions that they were downloading and managing. Each extension was being managed individually. Each extension, was updating at different times and changing its look and feel and changing how it was responding. to what the students needed, and so it just became kind of a headache for students and teachers to manage. So really our real focus was, how can we simplify the process and what students are using? Because we know that they were doing really good things with highlighting and with having text read to them and translating and having an easy-to-use dictionary. But as we watched them use those things, and I actually went into classrooms and saw, students navigating all these different apps and extensions. They were going to 14 different places for all of these different ones. And so that's when I had remembered, hey, there was this read and write thing that's on my computer and that I use all the time. Why don't we have this conversation about, putting everything and more together in this one clean, easy-to-use toolbar. And so that's when we really started to pick up some momentum behind Read and Write. So I showed it to some teachers and got them using it and got them excited about it. And it was great because everything was in one spot for them. There was no need to go to multiple areas, to look for tools or manage how the tool would be reacting or responding or updating or whatever it might be. And there were even more things that were in Read and Write that our students previously never had access to. An example is word prediction, right? So that was a big one that we were struggling with, at the same time that we were trying to organize all these things, we were getting requests from our special education team and our assistive tech team saying, we need a tool, we need a resource or a solution, to use a better word, for word prediction. And so Read and Write really became the perfect solution because it blended all of those things that the kids were using, as well as bring in more things that they now have access to. But it didn't overcomplicate it because, again, it put everything in that easy-to-use one spot. I can go, any student can go, from first grade through high school and know this is where I find my tools to use when I'm in Chrome or on the Chromebooks at the middle school level at this point. So we ended up purchasing Read and Write in the fall of 2016. We did collaborate with our special education department to purchase it as a universal design for learning tool. And so that allowed us to provide access to all of our students, right? So when we first started this conversation, it was that we were only going to provide access to Read and Write for only the students that we identified as needed some additional help or support with reading or writing or accessibility. Students with IEPs or that were identified, right? But because we purchased it under this universal design for learning, we were able to provide access to all students because we know no matter what level, all students can utilize support, and this gave everyone an equal opportunity to learn, and it didn't limit who had access to what, right? It also ensured that our students who maybe do have IEPs or do need some specialized tools didn't stand out against their peers, right? So they could still use the Chromebooks, right? And have the same toolbar that everyone else in the class has, right? So especially at the middle school level, where if you teach middle school or are familiar with the middle school level, you know that the students at that level can be very self-conscious about what's on their devices or what they're using. So what we did was we just pushed that out to everyone, and we said, this is now a resource for everyone. So as I said, we pushed out this extension to all students from kindergarten through high school. And we really had some discussion about what does this look like, right? And really the debate was, do we kind of recommend it to our teachers, right, and to our buildings, right, and have teachers owning the tool and then telling their students, I would like you to use this tool, right, or go with what I call a student empowerment option, right, where students just naturally have the tool available to them, and if they want to use it, it's there, right, and if they don't want to use it, they can ignore it. And I'll share on the next slide kind of what that's turned into, but we've been shocked at our usage and where the usage is coming from. We do still support special education, or special education still does support matching, tools to students, right? And sitting down with students and teachers and providing some direct instruction or feedback as to, here is this tool and this is how it can help you with your reading, because we know that we need to address those student-specific needs on an individual basis, but we were really happy that we ended up pushing it out to all students, and that we went in that road for deployment. So where have we seen an impact? So we've really seen an impact everywhere. Obviously with our special education department, we've seen a lot of use because it does such a great job at helping students at that level access text and write in a way that normally or naturally they might not be able to, right? So now I can be reading the same passage that everyone else in the class is reading. I can just have it being read to me through my headphones, for example, right? And so we've just seen a great amount of use at our special education level. Same thing with our English ELL program, our English Language Learners program. Same thing, using the translation feature, using the same speech-to-text feature. But the area that I want to highlight on this slide is our gifted and talented and our advanced placement programs. It was a surprise to me. I had hoped that all of our students would use the tool and take advantage of the tools that are there for them. But it was a surprise to me when I started to hear the impact that it was having in our gifted and talented programs at the elementary and middle schools and our advanced placement courses at high schools. Because at those levels, we are pushing students, our teachers and our curriculum really pushes students to read challenging text, right, and access content that is challenging, right, because these are our bright students, and so what Read&Write has done for them is it has given them some tools to say, maybe I'm reading something and I come across a word I don't know, right? Or a word that I'm not really even sure how to pronounce that word, right? I can pop out my Read&Write toolbar and have that, get a quick definition or have that word read to me. And I think that was an important component in the deployment of Read and Write is that if we had told those students, if you get to a point when you need help with your reading, right? Here's some tools for you. We know that those students are never going to, I shouldn't say never, but are very rarely going to say, yes, I need some help with my reading, because they're strong readers, right? They're strong writers, and they probably have been their whole lives. But by now having this toolbar available to them, they can kind of just, without calling attention to themselves or saying, hey, I need help, right? They can access the toolbar, access the tools and resources, and get that help, right? Without calling so much attention to it. So I talked with some teachers about kind of what were some of their favorites, or some of the things that they love about Read and Write, and why they have really become champions for Read and Write at their buildings. So every teacher said that they loved the simplistic nature of using the tools, that they're just easy to use, right? There's no doubt that the highlighter is a highlighter, right? That the dictionary is a dictionary. It's just there, simple to use, and and straightforward, right? So it doesn't require them to train kids how to use it. The kids can figure it out themselves. It's a simple way. A lot of teachers said that they like the ability for students to customize the toolbar. And what that means is, in that toolbar that I showed, there might be, and I don't have the exact count, but 15 different tools or different things that they can use, right? Now, for some students, they can navigate that toolbar very easily. For the majority of our students, they can. However, for some students, that toolbar might be a little overwhelming, right? There's too much for me to process what I need, and so as a student, I end up clicking around or playing with some of the other tools or whatever that might be. And so now Read and Write offers the option for students to go in and customize that toolbar, right? So if I'm not a student that needs word prediction, right, I can turn that tool off, right? Or for just this assignment, Andy, for just this assignment, I just want you to go through and just have the text read to you and highlight some things that you find interesting, right? So I can go in, turn off everything else except for text-to-speech and the 4 highlighters, and that's it, right? That way, it's not too cumbersome, it's not too busy for those students that do need. The toolbar is pretty simple to use, but you can even make it simpler, I guess is my message. The highlighter tool is a phenomenal tool. So the highlighter tool allows you and your student and the students an easy way to take notes, right? So students can go through articles, and I think Debbie's going to demo this in just a minute. Go through articles or text that they find wherever they're reading, highlight the areas that they want to take notes, click a button, and it's going to gather all those highlights into a new Google Doc. I know from my work with note-taking with students and all the research that I did with students when I was in the classroom, that many times the transfer of I'm reading an article online and I'm finding important facts, and I want to write those important facts on my note sheet, on my paper pencil note sheet, the transfer from online to that note sheet can be a challenge for even our best and brightest students, let alone our students who struggle with reading and writing. And so to have that option to just highlight that text, gather those highlights together, and have everything there for me in a new Google Doc is really a game changer. The cross-platform nature of Read and Write is phenomenal. So no matter if I'm in a Google Doc, on a website, or in a PDF, no matter what platform I'm on, I have a toolbar that I can use and access the content that's there. And then our teachers also love the translate feature that's available for ELL, foreign language, or other applications as well. So, that was my, so our professional development plan. So as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, we are a small department in a large district, and so we need to have, we need to have kind of a clear plan of how we're going to support our teachers with the things that we purchase, and with great products like Read and Write. So we did a lot of very active marketing and promotion to kick off the year, and we still regularly do that. And that was led by myself and our department. So we really just talked with teachers about it all the time. Have you seen this? Right, can I show you just one feature? Little things like that. We did, we highlighted it in our newsletter. We highlighted it on our website. So teachers started hearing more and more about it. Also, again, the deployment strategy, having it on all of the student devices, students started seeing, hey, there's a little purple puzzle piece here. I wonder what this does. They would click it and start playing around with it. And then, showing the teacher, hey, did you know that there's a, if I just click here, it's just going to read it to me? And it just started taking off very organically and like wildfire. There was very minimal training or PD that was necessary. The special education department, again, they do work directly with teachers to match features to student need, things like that. And the special education department also did lead a train-the-trainer model where they identified a point person at every building, and they did a half day of training where they did a deep dive into each tool and what it did and how it functioned in a PDF versus a website versus a Google Doc. And at the end of the half day, the teachers felt like this was great. I'm glad that we had this time to come together to talk about this. But I don't know that a half day was needed. The train-the-trainer model is also the way that we share resources with all teachers, right? So if Read and Write were to release another tool tomorrow, and Debbie would say, hey Andy, I just want to let you know that now Read and Write does this. We now have a point person at every building that I can then communicate with, or that our special education department can communicate with, and then they will share that information out with the rest of the staff. And I wanted to highlight all teachers, right? So it's not just special education sharing with their department. We are actively telling them, you need to get this information, get this material in the hands of every staff member at your building. And that's even beyond teachers, I should have said. All administrators, support staff, anyone. So if you have any questions, that was just kind of a brief summary of which I probably talked too long as it was, but of Indian Prairie's journey over the last couple of months to implement Read and Write and some of the successes that we've already had. We look forward to seeing how this continues to grow and impact teacher instruction and student learning moving forward.
Thank you, Andy. That was awesome. That was great. There are a couple of quick questions that we'll take, and then if you have others for Andy or others for me as we go along over the next few minutes with the demo, please feel free to put those in the chat box. I do have to tell a kind of a quick little funny story. When you had mentioned the purple puzzle piece, we did a webinar with one of our higher education campuses just last week, and they're using Google across campus, and our contact there went to like the dollar store and bought hundreds of these little children's puzzles, you know, with the big pieces, and they spray painted them all purple, and all over campus they distributed, there were purple puzzle pieces all over the place, in the library, in classrooms, in the lunchroom, you know, on the walk into the, you know, into certain buildings, and it was this whole like, what is this kind of gaining momentum about what this purple puzzle piece is. You know, they did this hashtag on Twitter, get your puzzle piece on, or something like that, and it really helped to create momentum and awareness that this product was available to all students. And I loved your term about student empowerment, because that's how we talk about this, the whole UDL, Universal Design for Learning concept of Read and Write, is we call it discoverability. If it's there, if a student logs into their Google Doc or they're on a web page and they see this purple puzzle piece, often they will discover it on their own. You don't need to tell them about it. You know, that's one of the wonderful things about this generation of students. They're not afraid to explore technology, so that's great. So a couple questions for you. Several people have asked about your thoughts on gathering data usage or analytics about usage of Read and Write. I can address what we're doing on our side, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, so with some of the adoptions and the purchases that we've made, we are kind of, I would say, less concerned about you know, what percentage of students are using it, or how is it being used, and more interested in talking with our teachers directly, and soliciting feedback from our teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't spend very much time in looking at percentages or saying 20% are using it, or whatever it might be.
Right.
We spend our time having that active conversation about, are you using it and are you seeing an impact on student learning? And with Read and Write, we've seen a resounding yes.
Great. Well, and that's fantastic, and unfortunately not all districts operate like that, as we know, and there often is a need to put some data, some numbers to a purchase, when there's money being spent. And we have started that process on our back end with some data usage and analytics. We're in the early stages of that. One of the things that we've had to really be mindful of is not capturing student data. We have a very strict student data policy where we don't keep that information, and so capturing usage data, we have to find a way to do that without capturing student data. And so we've managed a way to do that where we're showing trends, because like Andy had said, the real proof is in talking to teachers and students about their experience and their improvement over time. And so what we're capturing is trends. We can tell you over a defined period how many events students engaged Read and Write for Google with. Now an event may be they clicked on the dictionary, they selected a highlighter, they built a vocabulary list. So we can tell you, you know, yesterday or last month your district did X number of events, this month they did, you know, X times 2, because what we're hoping you're going to see is trends, improvement, more usage over time. We can then tell you based on those events what percentage of those events are text-to-speech, what percentage is word prediction. So you can get a feel for the types of tools that are rising to the top that most of your students are using. So for our current customers out there who are on and who want to, you know, are interested in knowing a little bit more about those tools, I can certainly, you know, help you with that. The next, there was another question about how teachers can get this for free, and I will address that before we're done today. And then there were a couple of questions from people who didn't realize that they could customize the toolbar, and I'll show you that. But before we do that, I just want to ask my colleague Danielle, is there anything else pressing, Danielle, that we should answer at this point?
Yes, Debbie, we actually have 2 other questions that I think you could hopefully squeeze into your demo as well. Could you speak a little bit about SnapVerter? We had that question come up. So as you're doing your demo, if you can just address SnapVerter. And we got the question of if students can access Read and Write from home if they log into their school email address. So if you could address that question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Andy, you want to take that one? That's a good one for you. You want to take it? Can students access this from home?
Yes. So yeah, that's one of the things that we love about it. One of the things that we love about promoting the use of Google Chrome just in general, and is that all of these tools are available at school and at home. And we know in our transition one-to-one, we're kind of in limbo right now because some of our students have the devices, but the majority of our students do not. But you know, they are able to log in in district and have the tools pop up and go home and log in at their home computer and have those same tools, features, and functionality available to them no matter where they are.
Perfect. Great. And to expand upon that, as of October 1st, we actually changed our licensing from individual platform licenses to a family license. So when Andy talked about universal design for learning and having these tools support all learners, you know, we also want that to be these tools supporting as many devices as we can. Now, as you all recognize in your own districts, it's very difficult to find a tool that works identically across an iPad, an iBook, you know, a Chromebook, and a Windows machine. But we do have all those different versions, and the licensing does allow you to use all those versions. So whether you're a district like Andy's who have really committed to the Chromebook and are moving one-to-one with all Chromebooks, you know, that's great. You can use our Google extension. But if you're a district that has a mix of Chromebooks and some kids aren't on, maybe you're, you know, only adopting Google at the high school level and you've still got kids using Windows machine with Word, or you're on iPads at the lower grades, we have solutions for that too. That's all part of the same license. So. All right, so let's jump into a demo, and if there's more questions, just keep them coming. So Andy referenced a couple times that Read and Write for Google's toolbar works across multiple file formats. So there's one extension, but 3 little toolbars. The first one that we're going to look at today is the toolbar that works inside of Google Docs. Then we'll look at the toolbar that works inside of web pages, and then the toolbar that works inside of PDF files. Now, keep in mind, I'm showing you today the Google Chrome version. As I mentioned, we have others, so the iPad version does look different, the Windows version looks different, the Mac version looks different, but the tools are essentially the same. You know, the text-to-speech, the dictionaries, the word prediction, the vocabulary, all works similarly across all of those platforms. So here I have just a general Google Doc in my drive. You can see, again, that whole discoverability. I have this little purple puzzle piece hanging down here. if I click on that, it drops down my toolbar. The nice thing about this is if I don't need these tools right now, or I don't have any, reason to be working with them in this particular document, I can just click that little purple puzzle piece and the toolbar gets hidden, and it's not, it's not in my way at all. Several people asked about customizing the toolbar, and Andy mentioned this is one of the things that they liked because certain students may be overwhelmed by seeing all of these tools in one place. So on the far right hand side of your toolbar here, and this change to the settings is actually a relatively new, within the last 6 months, enhancement. So those of you who may not have been familiar with it, it's, it is pretty new. So if I click on settings, I have a couple of different things I can set preferences for the toolbar itself. If I go down to features on the left-hand side here, here is a list of all of the tools that are currently showing up on my toolbar. And so you see I have a little slider, kind of a radio button toggle on and off. If you watch what happens up there on my toolbar, it's a little grayed out right now, but if you look at the left-hand side of my toolbar, as I turn these off, right, you'll see that those tools are hidden. I'm not, I'm not deleting them. They're not going away anywhere. All I have to do is click that little toggle button back on again, and it turns them back on. The other thing I can do now is, let's say that I use the vocabulary tool, which is down here towards the end of the toolbar all of the time. I can take my little vocabulary and I can raise it all the way up to the top, right? So if I want to move things around in a manner that maybe makes more sense to the way that I work, I can do that. A couple of other things I want to quickly point out about the settings, and I think this is one of our, really amazing things about this tool, is we do have a translator. So if you have an English language learner student who perhaps natively speaks Spanish, they can click on a word and then in English and they can get the Spanish translation. Okay, Google does fabulous translation, that's great. But what about not only English language learner students, but students taking a foreign language? I can turn the entire program into a couple of different languages. This means that word prediction is in Spanish. The dictionary is in Spanish. My of course, the text-to-speech would be in Spanish. So I think that's a great tool, again, to support all learners, not just certain students. We won't go through all the little bells and whistles and settings, but know that there are, different settings that you have here under that little gear shift icon on the right side of your toolbar. So the first thing we'll do is we'll look at text-to-speech, right? So the ability to have students have a tool that allows them to have text read at a level that may be higher than they're normally comfortable with can be very important, whether this is someone who's reading below grade level or someone who's reading at grade level but has, wants to read something that's maybe a little bit more advanced for them. So all I do is I position my cursor somewhere in the document. I'll start in the second paragraph here, and I click on the play button, and it will begin to read. And it will begin to read. There we go.
May be exciting, but it is not an easy job. A person who wants to be an astronaut has to study for...
So I can pause it as it's reading. We changed our voices, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, and added some, what I think are very natural sounding voices for computer assisted voices. So this is our Ava, she's our default voice. You noticed when it was highlighting, it does what we call dual synchronous highlighting. It highlights the sentence that we're working on in yellow and then each word in blue, which helps to improve reading comprehension. I can click the pause button again and it will continue, or I can just click the stop button and it will stop. So this is accessible text, right? I can edit this, I can select and highlight it, I can add to it. So reading it is very easy to do. When we talk about PDFs in a second, it becomes a little bit more difficult, and I'll explain why. So what are some other tools that we have here? Well, Andy had mentioned the dictionary. Well, there's nothing particularly magical or different about the dictionary, but the nice thing is that the dictionary is built right into the toolbar. And so if I'm, reading along this document and I click on a word and I don't know what it is, I click on the dictionary. I hopefully get the dictionary definition. Here we go, open up, and now I can actually have that definition read out loud to me, right, just by clicking on the little play button. It will read that. But what I also like is I can get an image or a picture of this. So I have a picture dictionary as well, right? So let's wait till that populates. So now, as I'm reading this document, I can keep both of these windows open, and as I'm reading, if there's a word I don't know, all I have to do is click on that word and my dictionary and my picture dictionary will repopulate itself with the new definitions and images. So I think that's really helpful because then students aren't opening and closing, or as Andy had mentioned, going out and looking for the extension that does the dictionary or a picture dictionary, for example. My personal favorite tool brings these two things together. So I'm going to close these up, and you see that we do have our little highlighters. We have 4 different color highlighters. So if I want to build a vocabulary list, a study guide of vocabulary based on some of the words in my document, I'm going to go through this document and I'm going to pick out the words that I don't know. And I'm going to highlight them just using any one of the highlighters that I have here. It doesn't matter. They don't all have to be the same color. They don't have to, they can all be different colors, right? So you'll see that I have a couple of different ones, and let's just pick one more here. All right. All right, so you see I have a couple of words highlighted. Now this is my list. My list may be different than Andy's list. So we talk about differentiating instruction. It's nice for students to be able to have the list of words that they don't necessarily feel comfortable with. So once I have that list selected, I click on my little vocabulary tool. I get a little dialog box that tells me that a new vocabulary list is being created. Now this does take about 20 or 30 seconds, which feels like a lifetime when you're doing a demo. And it's going to create a brand new Google Doc that's already going to be saved in my Google Drive. You'll want to give it a particular, a name, because we don't want every document listed as the vocabulary list, and here we go. That didn't take too long. And so you'll see that this new Google Doc has a couple different columns. It has the words that I had highlighted. It has the definition. Oh, wonder why we don't have a picture of Earth. That's interesting. Oh, darn it. Something screwed up here. Oh, nope, there we go. Darn it. All right, trust me, this is like 1 in 1,000 times that this happens, but I should, and I might close this up and try it again in a second. But I get the words, I get the definition, I get the image, and then I get a space to make my own notes. So maybe the student defines that word in their own words, right? So those are all what Bob Marzano has talked about being some of the important pieces to learning vocabulary. So that's the vocabulary builder. If I go back to my document, yes, Andy? Yes.
One way that our teachers are using that is they're using the notes field for students to use that word in a sentence to come up with their own, use that word in context. And then because it's a Google Doc, then they can turn that Google Doc into their teacher.
Right.
Through Google Classroom or whatever means they might use. So that's been something we've seen.
Perfect. I've also seen it in ELL classrooms where that notes field has been the word in the other language. So now when you're teaching students, you've got the word in Spanish, the word in English, the definition, a picture, so you've got everything all in one place as well. I think that can be real helpful. All right, something screwed up the first time. So here's my list. You can see I've got all my words with all my definitions, all my images for each of the words that I had highlighted in my document. So perfect. Okay, so let's go back to my little copy of our Google Doc here, and let's look at word prediction for a second. One of the things that is not yet on the toolbar, but should be here by next fall, in the beginning of the school year, is spell checker. Well, if your students are using word prediction, they don't need spell checker because every word is going to be spelled correctly. So let me open up word prediction, and this gives us a list of words that we might want to start our sentence with. Okay, you can see I have a list here. But what if I wanted to say, maybe I'm not a great speller, and I'm going to say, I like science, and maybe I don't know how to spell science, science, right? Okay, so I spelled it out. You can see that even if I've spelled it completely incorrectly, I'm still getting science there. So it does phonetic mapping. But for some students, they might not recognize that that first word is science. So what can they do? Well, they can hover over the top of each word and it will read it.
Science. Sense. Since.
Right, so they might know that's science, or I can open dictionary and picture dictionary again, and then as I hover, if I move this over, as I hover over the words in my word prediction list, now I get a definition and a picture of them. So if students are struggling with the proper word to use, we give them a lot of resources to do that. Okay? And then, but some students, even with word prediction, they struggle with writing. They have it in their head, but they can't get it to their fingertips. And so for those students, you know, we offer speech input or dictation. Now in Google Docs, we use Google's speech input tool. And so I can just click on my little speech input, and I can add my own information right here, period, new line. Today is Thursday, period. Or is it Wednesday, period, question mark. Anyway, you get the idea. Look at it, does all my periods, question marks, right? So it uses Google Speech in a Google Doc, but when I get into a PDF or a web page and I want to use speech input, Google doesn't have that available, but we do on our toolbar. So again, using that same tool cross-platform. Anything you want to add about any of that, Andy? Who might be muted?
Just that we've seen a lot of use in filling out Google Forms.
Yep.
Has been a great way that this has been used, or just getting your thoughts out, right? Just spilling your thoughts. Talk, go in a quiet spot and just spill into the computer. Right, yep. Brain dump.
Yep.
And then we'll worry about putting it into sentences and organizing it later.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
Perfect. Great. One other tool that is unique to the Google Docs tool, which I think is a great tool, and that is our voice notes tool. You're all probably very familiar with the ability to make comments and to collaborate via comments in a Google Doc. Well, if a student hands in a paper to the teacher and the teacher wants to make some suggestions, notes, provide feedback on that paper, they can do that in the comment section and type their comments. But what if the teacher can use their own voice and speak the comment? So all I have to do is click on my voice notes, and I did this already this afternoon because it takes a second to render. And you see I have a little comment here where my normal text-based comments would show up, but instead of the text I have a little play button. So now if I click on that, I like how you started your paper off with a question. It engaged me right away. What I'd like to see you do is answer that question for yourself. Have you ever thought about what it is like in space? Right? So just think about how nice it is for teachers to be able to have their own voice providing that feedback to a student, and how nice it is for the student to hear that teacher as opposed to maybe reading comments where you don't always hear the inflection in their voice. So I think that's pretty cool. All right, so quickly moving over to a web page. So here's a web page. When I look at this web page, I can automatically see this is a lot different than that Google Doc that we had been on. There's a lot going on here. There's animations, there's pop-ups, there's advertisements, there's drop-downs, right? So for some students, this is a bit overwhelming. First of all, you do notice that we don't have that little purple puzzle piece hanging off of the toolbar, but I have it near my Omnibar where my extensions are. So if I click on the purple puzzle piece when I'm in a web page, it just pops in my toolbar and looks very, very similar to what we just looked at in Google Docs. So my word prediction is the same. The dictionary, picture dictionary, I can build a vocabulary list from web pages. But what is different on this page, or this set of tools, is the ability to simplify this text by using our Simplify page and strip away or declutter all of that other stuff so that the student can actually just look at the text of that document. And so now it opens up a new web page. It still provides me with my toolbar, and so now all that other stuff that might have distracted me is gone. And so I can, using, and I think Andy said this is one of the things that they use quite a bit, use these highlighter tools now to create my own study guide, right? My own notes builder. So if I wanted to just go through here and sort of pick, you know, some important pieces of information to build that study guide, and I'll go through and you'll, you know, whatever, just pick a couple of different key pieces of information here. All right, and so I'm on this web page. I can be doing this in a PDF or a Google Doc. Now I click the Collect Highlights button, click OK, and a new Google Doc is going to be created, again saved in my drive, and it's going to extract everything that I had highlighted and put it in a single new Google Doc, so that now I have you know, my notes builder right here, very easily accessible to me. Okay, and then as we quickly move along, because yeah, go ahead. Great.
One really nice thing about that is if you look at the bottom of that document, if you see the word simplify,
yep.
That is a link that will link back to the original document. So if you're doing it on a web page, it's not going to say simplify, it's going to say time for kids or world book,
yep,
or wherever the students got that information from, so that they can always jump back to that. So even if you close that browser, close your Chrome session and come back the next day and you want to continue, you can pull up that note sheet and have access to jump right back to that article.
Perfect. Yes, exactly. And if the student needs to cite something that they used in that article, it will take them back to that page so they can get that information to cite it properly in a bibliography, for example. Okay, so finally, and I know we're approaching our hour, let's look at PDFs, right? So here's PDFs. This is one area that is changing in the next few months for us. We're going to be completely revamping the PDF toolbar so that it looks more similar to the other toolbars, but it works very similarly as well. PDFs are not all created equal. So if I have a document, if a teacher, say, sees an article in a magazine and takes that article down to the office and runs it through the school's high-speed copy machine as a PDF and emails it to herself, shares it to the students in Google Classroom, that PDF is more than likely just a picture of a page. It's an image file. The computer doesn't know that there's words or text or image, or sentences on that page. So in order to make sure that you're working with what we call accessible PDFs, PDFs that can be read aloud by a text-to-speech engine, it needs to go through some form of OCR, optical character recognition. Somebody earlier had asked about SnapVerter. SnapVerter is an add-on for Read&Write for Google that is an OCR conversion tool. It allows you to take a picture of a document or to take an existing document and virtually convert it to readable text. And we'll provide some information about SnapVerter in the follow-up email to you so that you'll have some additional information about that. But here's my PDF, and so I have a text-to-speech button, right? So if I click anywhere in my document, it will read it to me.
To answer the question of whether terraforming Mars is possible.
Right. So this is an accessible document, but what's different, and I have all the same tools, right? I have the dictionary, vocabulary, all those same tools. What's different in PDFs is the ability to annotate into the PDF. So I have a typewriter annotation, which is anywhere that I have white space. I can click on that, and now, I can add my notes here. I can also open up word prediction in my text box, and it will help me to predict which words I use. And remember, we talked about speech input earlier in Google Docs. I can use speech input, and I can add my notes directly into this text box by dictating here, period. right? So, and I think I screwed up text right there, but you get the picture. So now in in any file format, I have those tools consistently working from Google Docs to web pages to PDFs. Andy, any comments on that as we're at our 4 o'clock time?
No comments. Looks great.
Great. Danielle, before we stop, we have a couple quick things. We want to provide our customers on the line with the ability to get some additional information. So we'll open up that last poll. We can see if there are any other last-minute questions. Were there any additional questions, Danielle?
Yes, Debbie, there was one other. If you could go back to word prediction, this person had mentioned that when a student uses very phonetic spelling, such as a spelling of the word science, the word prediction does not pick it up. Do you know if there will be any updates to our word prediction? Or?
Well, I wonder how they would have spelt science.
They spelled it actually as S-I-E-N-S.
S-I-E-N-S. Okay. All
but
right.
That's just one example.
Yeah. So let S-I-E-N-S science. Okay. Well, yeah, that's a funky spelling. That could be a problem. I guess it depends on the word. Not every combination of letters that a student puts together in terms of their phonetic mapping may show up on word prediction. But for example, if I spell elephant starting with an L, an L-F-A-N-T, which, that's a lot fewer letters than the reality. You see that we do get elephant there. So I'm not sure that we're going to be making too many changes and modifications to word prediction. We feel like it's pretty darn good. And there are a lot of other tools that we would like to see added and other enhancements that we'd like to be able to make to read and write that you're going to see in the coming future as well. So the last thing we want to do today is, first of all, thank you so much, Andy, for your great story. I, of course, loved hearing that. And thank you to everyone who was on with us today. We have a Amazon dot to give away to someone who was on with us today and stuck with us. So, Danielle, do we have a winner for our dot?
We do. Our winner is Patricia Buckley. And thank you for staying to 5:02, and congratulations. Or 4:02, my apologies.
Make sure we get Patricia's information and get that over to her. So, all right, well, thank you so much, everybody. We will be following up. If there's anything that we can assist you with, I'm going to put my contact information back up here. So please feel free to reach out to me if there's anything that we can assist you with. And until then, have a wonderful evening, and thank you for the time you spent with us learning about Read and Write for Google Chrome and what Indian Prairie School District 204 is doing with these great tools. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.